Some legends are buried for a reason, but here on Ancient Echoes we dig them up every week. If dark history, cursed artifacts, and true folklore fascinate you, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because next week's legend might be even more terrifying. The year was 1912. The air was already growing cold in the forests of Bavaria, and in the tiny village of Eisfeld, nestled between pine-thick hills and crooked timber homes, little Clara Hoffman was turning 6 years old. Her father, a local carpenter, had returned from a traveling fair in Hamburg with a surprise. It was delicate, wrapped in linen. He handed it to her at the dinner table as firelight flickered across their cottage walls. When she unwrapped it, her breath caught. A porcelain doll, fine white skin, ocean blue glass eyes, golden curls sewn perfection, a velvet green dress with tiny brass buttons down the front. It didn't look handmade. It looked almost real. Clara named her Greta. She wouldn't let her go, not even at night. But the first sign something was wrong came before midnight. Their dog, Victor, barked wildly at the foot of Clara's bed, teeth bared, tail between his legs. No matter how they tried, he wouldn't enter the room again. It started with murmurs. Just days after Greta's arrival, Clara's parents began hearing soft noises from her room. Between midnight and 2 a.m., always when the fire had died low, they thought it was sleep talking, until the voices overlapped. Clara, her mother, whispered through the door one night. She heard Clara's soft voice say, "Yes?" But then, a second voice, too low, too cold, whispering in reply. When they entered the room, Clara was fast asleep. Greta, however, was not where they had left her. She sat upright in Clara's desk chair, facing the door, eyes gleaming slightly in the dark. A week later, Clara began saying things she couldn't have known. Details about her dead uncle, secrets buried with her grandmother. One night at supper, she quietly said, "Mama, Greta told me about the baby you lost. She's sorry it died." Her mother dropped her spoon. The change in Clara became impossible to ignore. She no longer played outside. She sat for hours whispering to Greta. Her drawings changed. Once full of animals and sunshine, now filled with graves, hanging bodies, and bleeding eyes. Her mother found one she refused to burn, a sketch of the family dinner table. Greta seated with them, at the father's spot. Her father, now desperate, demanded the doll be destroyed. That night, he threw Greta into the fireplace. But instead of catching fire, the flames collapsed inward, like wind had been sucked out of the room. The fire reversed. Smoke twisted violently. The hearth cracked, and the doll rolled back out, unburned. Hours later, he woke from a choking sensation. Greta was lying on his chest, her hand gripping his shirt, her eyes wide open. He never tried again. Clara's mother, now afraid her daughter had been touched by something unholy, sought help from the local priest, Father Dietrich, an old man with a limp and eyes that never blinked fast enough. She brought Greta in a wooden crate, wrapped in linen soaked with holy water. The priest opened it cautiously, as if expecting a beast, not a toy. When he looked into Greta's eyes, he flinched. "This is not just a doll," he whispered. "This is a vessel." He placed her on the church altar and began to pray. The candles flickered. The stained glass rattled in the windows. And then the crucifix above the altar cracked. "Take it away," he said breathlessly. "I cannot help you." When Clara's mother begged him, the priest only replied, "The soul inside it doesn't want to leave. And worse, it's not alone." He closed the church doors behind them and never spoke to them again. Days turned into weeks. Clara was slipping. Her speech became erratic, half German, half something else. Her voice changed mid-sentence. One moment she was herself. The next, her posture stiffened, her eyes wide and distant. "Greta says you're next," she whispered once to her mother. Then Papa, then the priest. She stopped sleeping, refused food unless it was placed beside the doll. One night, Clara stood motionless in the rain for hours barefoot, holding Greta to her chest. Her mother begged her to come inside. "I'm not Clara," the child said. When they dragged her inside, she clawed the walls until her fingers bled. But when morning came, she had no memory. In the journal her mother kept, one entry read, "I am losing my daughter. Greta is taking her piece by piece." The turning point came on a cold November morning. Clara's grandmother, Oma Elise, had come to help, a firm believer in folk healing. She tried to burn sage and bless the doll herself. As she chanted old prayers, the air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Candles turned blue. "It's laughing at me," she said in a trembling voice. No child made this laughter. That night, she stayed in the guest bedroom with Clara, the doll placed in a drawer. By dawn, she was dead. No wound, no illness, but the look on her face, eyes wide, mouth agape, was one of absolute terror. The drawer where Greta had been locked was empty. They found the doll on the windowsill, facing the sunrise, as if watching something come closer. After Oma Elisa's death, Clara's father had enough. He wrapped the doll in chains, stuffed in a coal sack, and swore to bury it miles from the village. But before he could leave, the cottage caught fire. Flames burst from the chimney and roared through the beams like a living creature. Neighbors watched as the house screamed, a sound unlike anything they had ever heard. Clara was trapped upstairs. When the firemen broke in, they found her curled in the corner of her room, untouched by fire. The entire floor around her was scorched, except where Greta lay beside her. Her father was found unconscious, thrown from the house. The doll had no soot on it. After the fire, the family moved to stay with distant relatives. For the first few days, Greta was locked in the cellar, triple locked, holy water on the door. But on the 7th day, the door stood open. The locks were intact. The doll was gone. So was Clara. They searched the woods for weeks. They drained nearby wells. No footprints, no clothing, no leads. One witness, a woodcutter, claimed he saw a girl standing still in the mist at dawn. She was smiling. The doll was in her hands. He turned to call out. When he looked back, she was gone. Decades later, in 1984, a woman named Lenny Schwartz inherited an old trunk from her grandmother. Inside, beneath old linen, was a doll. Glass blue eyes, green velvet dress, perfectly preserved. A note attached read, "Never leave her alone at night." Lenny, skeptical of old tales, donated the doll to the Deutsches Historisches Museum in Berlin. They placed it behind bulletproof glass. Since then, over 20 night staff have reported whispering in the East Wing. One man swore the doll moved slightly each night. A child visitor once asked, "Why does the lady in the glass box follow me?" The museum now refuses to display the doll after sunset. Today, the doll known as Greta sits under permanent lock in the museum's restricted archive. No public access, no photos allowed. But those who've been near her say she still whispers. One audio technician picked up a faint voice during inventory. "Are you still watching?" A week later, he vanished during a routine security shift. Some say the curse was never about the doll. It was about the bond. And Clara? She was never found. But once, just once, the doll's reflection in the glass showed two girls, standing together, smiling. The doll known as Greta still sits behind glass in a locked archive. And some say her whisper never stopped. What do you believe? Was Clara truly possessed, or simply lost to a legend too old to trace? Let us know in the comments. And if you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of explorer we need here. Subscribe to Ancient Echoes for more deep dives every Friday, and haunting 1-minute legends every Monday. Until then, keep your lights low and your mind open.